So this is the antique brass Phoenix ceiling fan made by Fantasia. It's been fitted in my own bedroom about 10 years, fitted it about 10 years ago, and I've noticed recently a few problems with it. I can use the handset for the remote control to make the light work perfectly fine. I can turn it on, I can turn it off. However, I can't actually sometimes get the fan to come on. At the moment I'm pressing the slow speed. I've had to press it about 6 or 7 times. It's brought it on. I can now press medium speeds and high speeds and the fan isn't really reacting to the remote control. So there is an issue there somewhere. Now it would be unusual for it to be an issue with the actual motor of the ceiling fan. It's very rare for a Fantasia motor to have a problem inside the unit. Usually it's a remote control issue, and it's not usually the handset, it's usually the receiver unit which is built inside the actual fan itself. So what we'll do, we'll show you a new receiver unit, and we'll also show you how you can change your receiver unit on your ceiling fan in case that's a job that you have to do. So before attempting any work on your ceiling fan, please ensure that you've turned the electricity supply off so the fan is actually dead. You can do this on your consume unit, sometimes under the stairs, places like that. If you're at all unsure, then consult a qualified electrician who could do this job for you perfectly fine. But if you're happy that the power's off, and we will test that in a minute as well, then we can have a look at the fan itself. Now, the receiver unit is the other half of the remote control, and you'll find that under this cover here at the attachment to the ceiling. So the first thing to do is to take that dish that covers up the attachment off the actual fan, or bring it down a little bit anyway. And the way to do this is always by undoing a few screws. Now the screws will either be either side of the cover, or in this case on the Phoenix fan, they're just below. So if we undo those screws a little bit, just a little bit, then that dish will actually turn like so and can drop down the ceiling fan. Now that exposes everything we can see there in front of us. It might look like a massive cables, it might look complicated, but it's actually not as bad as you think it may be. So we'll take a little look at it. We'll also test to make sure that there's no power actually flowing to the fan, so everything is safe. I've got my electrical testers with me, and then we'll take a step further and replace that receiver unit. Now looking at the ceiling fan, I can see where the power is coming through my ceiling to the fan and the connector block on the hanging bracket. Now my house has old style cabling, so I've got a red live and a black neutral, and I've added an earth separately which is green and yellow. More modern houses will have brown for live, blue for neutral, and green and yellow again for the earth. I can see the power coming in, and I just want to make sure definitely that actually there's no power flowing to the fan. So I have got with me my electrical testers, which you may have, or your electrician can test this for you. And if I set it to high voltage, I can just test by touching those two that there actually is no power flowing to the fan. So we will put that there, put that there. There's definitely no voltage flowing. It's showing 0, so we know there's no power to that fan, so we can now work on that nice and safely. So the brown wire coming out of the receiver unit has a little bit of tape on it, and it says AC in. That's the live coming in. And the blue wire coming out of the receiver unit says neutral coming in. So if we disconnect those on our connector block on the side of the hanging bracket, like so, and like so as well. That's the live and the neutral actually coming in to the receiver unit. We don't need to disconnect the power from the house coming in, just need to disconnect those cables. Now we also need to disconnect the cables that would be coming out of the receiver unit as well, and they are colour coded, so they match up with the ones that are coming out from the actual fan itself. So what we will do, we will disconnect those cables just by unscrewing them in the connector blocks. can be fiddly. You just have to find the little bit of space. There we go. That's the live. And there is the neutral. There. With all the cables disconnected, we should actually be able to remove the remote control receiver unit, which is sitting inside that bracket. So if I pull that out, it is tight. There we go. We also need to undo one of these screws a little bit more and tighten it enough. That's not a problem. There we go. Now, we have disconnected the receiver unit that had the issue with it. I will also show you what the dip switch is, so we can just check that as well to make sure they're okay with the actual handset. But yeah, so we've removed that, and now we can have a look at putting the new one in.
So on one side of the receiver unit we have a blue neutral and a brown live, and they say AC in and N in, so they're actually connecting to the power coming in from the house. And on the other side we have a neutral going out and a live going out and an orange cable which is for the light, and these three from this side attached to the actual cables colour match from the ceiling fan. The bottom we have the black aerial which picks up the signals, and if we have a look inside here we have the four little switches called the dip switches. They're the switches that match each other.
So I've now brought our new receiver unit up to the ceiling fan, and it's got the same cables as previous coming out of it from the older unit. So I'm going to connect in the brown cable coming out the side of the receiver unit that was the power coming in to the power from the house. So in this instance, the brown cable says AC in, and I'm going to connect it in the connector block where the house's power's coming in, which in my case is red, but in most cases would be brown to match. And we will also do the same with the neutral, which in my case is blue coming out of the unit, and we'll say N in, and I will attach that to the connector block where the house's neutral is coming in. So again, make sure that connection is really nice and tight. It is important. They're nice and tight. Now on the other side of the actual fan unit, we've got the other cables. Now, basically, the brown cable will say to motor live, and the blue cable will say to motor neutral, L and N. So, if we can connect those up as well in the same manner, and the orange cable, which is for the light, then we will have reconnected the receiver unit. Once you've reconnected back up all the cables and you've pushed the receiver unit back into the nice little slot in the middle of the hanging bracket, you can push the cover back up again to cover up all the attachments. Now tuck in all the cables so they're not shown, and you will find those same screw holes previous that you can attach your cover into. Now when they're there, you can twist that around and we can re-tighten up those screws like so. There. Now that's the fan covered back up again. So the new receiver unit is fitted. It was quite simple, it was just a case of straightforward replacing the previous one, putting the cables where they were before, but they are colour coded to show you. So now we've done that, it's time to turn the power back on and we'll give it a test and see if it's working properly now. We checked to make sure that the dip switches were in the right place under the battery compartment on the handset and also on the actual ceiling fan itself. So now what we'll do, we'll see if it's working. So we'll press the power button for the light and that comes on perfectly fine. Press it again to turn it off. We'll test to make sure the light works with the dimming function, so we'll hold the button in and we can see how it cycles through. So the light is working perfectly fine. We'll bring it back up again to the top light setting, which is there, and we'll turn it off. And now we'll test to see whether the fan's working. So we'll try it in the low speed first of all. Come straight on. No problem with that. We'll let it pick up a little bit of speed. It may be worth, while you're up there changing that receiver unit, giving the fan a little dust. This fan is pretty dusty, it's been up there for a while. Just with a simple cloth will do the job. Might as well give it a clean. And also you can check the attachment to the ceiling to make sure that's nice and strong as well. So that's slow speed working perfectly fine. Now we'll test it onto medium. I can hear the fan kick in for medium speed. Being a 42-inch fan, medium and slow is perfect for the night time. You can hear the air movement, but there's certainly no sound coming from the motor. So that's medium speed, that looks perfectly fine. And we'll put it onto high. I can hear that kick in again. And that really is kicking some air out now. So we'll turn it off. And it turns straight off. So we've brought the fan back to life by changing the receiver unit. It was a simple job. As I say, you can do it, but if you're unsure in any way whatsoever, have a little word with an electrician who will be more than helpful to do the job for you. But that is how you change a receiver unit in a Fantasia ceiling fan.